Mic check one,
Yo,
two.
get out of here with them weak ass shoes, yo.
Balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
Welcome, Balls Deep fam, to another episode of Balls Deep with Devin and Jovan, where we dive balls deep into hottest stories in sports. I'm your host, Devin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jovan. It sounds like he's in an airplane right now, so please forgive us. But today's episode, we're going to be talking about some NBA, being that the NBA season is wrapped up, and we're currently in the process of the playing games, and the playoffs technically begin on May 22nd, so this weekend. So we're going to be talking about that. We know the first set of playing games already happened. So the Celtics beat the Wizards and the Pacers beat the Hornets. So now the Wizards play the Pacers for the 8th seed, and the Celtics now play the Nets.
Yes, sir.
And then the Lakers play tonight against the Warriors, and the Spurs play the Grizzlies. Winner of the Warriors-Lakers game advance and play the Suns in the first round, and the loser goes and plays the winner of the Spurs-Grizzlies game. But to get started, I guess we'll talk about the the most hyped game thus far, which is Lakers Warriors tonight. I mean, you see my background, Lakers Nation, baby. But my question to you, Jovan, is with the media hyping everything up, and ultimately trying to put fear that the Lakers aren't going to make it deep into the playoffs due to health or even chemistry reasons. Like, is there a reason to worry in your eyes?
I apologize for sounding like I am in an airplane. I had some technical difficulties. But with that being said, I mean, it's the playoffs. Nothing comes easy in the playoffs. I mean, especially in the West. I think in terms of the West and the East, there's really no weak teams in the West. Especially when you see like the possibility of having the Lakers and Warriors be a 7th and 8th seed. That kind of speaks volumes. Obviously, they weren't the healthiest of teams, so it makes sense. But when you have two teams like that at a 7th and an 8th seed, obviously you see that from top to bottom, the Western Conference is stacked. There's nothing that's going to come easy. So I want to make that very clear, that I'm not saying it's going to be easy for anybody. But also, do I think there's any cause for concerns to the extent that a lot of people are making them out to be? Not at all. Obviously, there's concerns in terms of the fact that, I mean, we really haven't had, we have everybody back now, but we really haven't had them play, many games together at all.
Yeah.
A few, maybe right in the beginning of the season, before AD went down. But otherwise, I feel like they're fine. I mean, it's mostly due in part of the fact that, without their star players, their two best players, and really their best defender all season, because, LeBron James is no scrub on defense side of the ball, but the fact that we didn't have, defensive player of the year caliber guy in AD for, the entirety of the season, basically, and still managed to have the number one defense since, I believe, the 99-2000 year in NBA is pretty insane. So adding an AD and then a LeBron on the defensive end of the ball, regardless if we can get our offense going or not, if we could get it clicking or not, which I think we can. I mean, we have one of the best facilitators, probably the best facilitator ever to play the game in LeBron James. We saw everybody talking about best point guards ever, top 5 point guards ever, and we finally saw somebody say, hey, why are we not talking about LeBron James? And it's true. I mean, he's probably one of the, if not the best passer ever, one of the best passers ever. So the offense Obviously, it's going to take some games, but they can get that going. But basically, what I'm trying to get at is even when our offense is struggling, and I have no doubts that they will in these first few games, trying to, like I said, garner some chemistry. I have no doubts that they will struggle. But even with that being said, the opposition, whoever it is across that court, which right now I do believe we will beat the Warriors. So it's looking like the Suns. But even if we don't, there's no way LeBron James is losing a winner go home game. So it might be the Jazz. And there's really going to be no easy buckets for either of those teams. And that goes the same for any other team like the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Mavs, the Blazers. It doesn't really matter
Yeah.
how stacked you are offensively. You're not going to have any easy buckets against the Lakers. And people are going to say, oh, who's going to guard this guy? Who's going to guard this guy? Like, yeah, it's easy to say who's going to guard Devin Booker. And then as a Lakers fan, I'm going to say Alex Caruso. And you're going to laugh it off probably. But he's one of the better defenders in the league. Yeah, he's not going out there and dropping 30 points a game. He's not shining on the stat sheet. We all know that. He's not, an all-star player. He's not a superstar player. But on the defensive side of the ball,
I mean, he is a superstar player. It's the Cruz show. Come on.
No, that's what I'm saying. So it's like obviously he doesn't have that like level of excitement as a Devin Booker, but you can't laugh it off like he's just some kind of joke. He's gonna go there. He's gonna play with tenacity. He plays hard. He
For sure.
plays 100% every play. He's gonna make Devin Booker work hard for buckets. And I'm not saying Devin Booker's not gonna go out there and get his. He's one of the best offensive players in the league, and he's gonna get his. But it's gonna be hard to keep that going in a 7-game series when you're constantly being shadowed by Caruso, a guy who's kind of taking so much of your energy on the offensive side of the ball because he is just such a hound dog. But with that being said, I think we'll be fine. It will take a few games, I think, to get some chemistry going. But at the same time, I mean, this team is so tight knit. Personally, I feel like that. That's I feel like the biggest part of chemistry is getting that like real relationship outside of basketball, and I feel like that's something that this team has an advantage in. So I feel like that on-court chemistry will come not very easily, but fairly easily.
I mean, to your point, Caruso is he's an unsung hero, essentially.
100%.
And it goes to the point where Vogel went out and even said that he deserves to make an all-defensive team, whether it be first, second, third. He deserves to be, nominated and ultimately chosen. But for me, I'm not worried at all. I mean, both AD and LeBron miss a big chunk of the season, yet the Lakers finished, with the number one best defense or the number one defense in the league. And that's the first time since I believe 2000 or 2003. I can't remember off the top of my head.
99, 2000.
Yeah, so that just goes to show how well this team was in, the time being, in the time that they missed. So we're only adding better defensive players to the problem. But our problem isn't defense. Our problem is offense. The only thing I'm worried about is injuries. Obviously, the health of the team is a big concern for me because you want everyone to be healthy. But at the same time, it's like I'm not worried about chemistry. You're adding, LeBron, who, like you said, is one of the best, if not the best, facilitator of all time, and AD. AD's that's going to help the offensive rating go up, in my opinion. So, chemistry-wise,
especially the way he's starting to play now.
Yeah, chemistry. He's in his stride at the right time. Offensively, I'm not really worried about it. That's where the struggles are coming from. Defensively, that's what's going to anchor us from the beginning to the very end. And I'm riding high on our defense. But as for this playing game, though, well, lastly, the only thing I'm worried about too is as of late we haven't been playing well down the stretch, but that's due to the offense. But that's just going to take time. So hopefully we can just get by these playing games and just within the first 7-game series, so the first round, I think we can get that down pat. But I'm just gonna go out and say that I do think that that I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, so with the playing game, I didn't want to play in the playing game because it's too risky. It's just one bad day can essentially send you home. And yes, even the Lakers lose, they have one more game, but it only takes 2 bad days to get sent home. And the team that I didn't want to meet is the Warriors. Why? Because they're playing, in my opinion, the MVP in Stephen Curry, and the dude is magic. He's very capable of any and everything. So he can literally control a game. So I think this playing game tonight, goes one of two ways. The Lakers either blow them out, or it's going to come down to the wire. And I think if it comes down to the wire, the Lakers lose. I truly do. So I think the only way the Lakers advance is if they blow them out, because the Warriors have been one of the hottest teams as of late, since you could say the start of April. They've been one of the hottest teams, and Stephen Curry has just been on another fucking planet with his plays. So
Played very well. I mean, there was not to interrupt, but there's always a lot of questions about how he's able to play down the stretch late in games earlier in his career when he was like disappearing in finals, or I shouldn't say earlier, but a few years ago when he was kind of disappearing in finals. But I mean, it's almost like we're seeing a whole different level of Steph Curry.
yeah,
We thought we've seen a prime Steph Curry, and it's like his prime is just like continuing on. It's almost like
yeah.
LeBron in a different sense, but it's like he's getting better still. So it's like we haven't really seen the best of him, and he's getting a lot better in crunch time minutes. So that's another big thing, and I kind of agree. I don't want to see it come down to the wire because I don't want the game reliant on whether or not Steph Curry's hitting a shot, because how he's playing right now, he's hitting that shot.
For sure.
You know,
But for me, I'm predicting the Lakers win, and the reason why is because no one knows how to guard Stephen Curry better than LeBron James. He's played him a lot in his career, and the best way to guarding him is throw bodies at him, throw different bodies at him, which the Lakers can do, and then also force his teammates to win them the game. He's gonna drop 40 points. He can drop 40 points, but if you prevent the other dudes from making an impact, then you should be prepared to win, because he's not gonna be able to win an entire game by himself. So although I don't think we'll stop him, we'll be able to limit him defensively, just because he's just a different type of player. I do think that the Lakers ultimately will advance, and should they lose, I don't see them losing to the Grizzlies or the Spurs. So I think they'll ultimately make it to the first round, but it's just a matter of who do they play, Jazz or the Suns. And I think the Suns are the better matchup for them, because although they have better offensive players, defensively they have no one to guard the Lakers playmakers. Whereas the Jazz have tons of depth, and they can play defense.
yeah. I mean,
They
not to
have
mention that,
they have defensive player of the year candidate Rudy Gobert.
yeah, who
So
basically, eliminates any baskets in the paint, kind of basically eliminates any use out of Andre Drummond in that entire series. You know what I mean? Because I don't see Andre Drummond really being able to do much against the Rudy
besides
Gobert.
rebound.
Yeah, besides rebound,
I mean, his role is to play rebound,
definitely.
and get the easy baskets, and ultimately play defense,
Yeah, but
which I think
baskets in
he
the paint
can.
against. That's what I'm saying. There's no easy baskets in the paint against the Jazz.
But as long as he's smart and just gets rebounds and passes it out and doesn't try to force anything, he's good. If anything, he can force it as long as he knows he's going to get fouled. And although he's not the greatest free throw shooter, if he gets fouled, you're putting the other team in foul trouble. So if you can get Rudy Gobert the fuck out of the game, it betters your chances. Before we get into our predictions for the first round or what have you, is what do you think about these teams, like the Clippers, who seem to be avoiding, or they seem to have tried to avoid playing the Lakers in the first round?
I mean, it was a few teams that I kind of felt were doing that. I mean, we saw
The Clippers and the Nuggets.
yeah, we saw the Clippers and the Nuggets. I mean, it seemed like the Nuggets didn't want it at all against the Trailblazers. It's just like, yo, you could have it. We don't want to see the Lakers round one. So, I mean, there was a few teams. It is what it is. if you want to win a championship, this is genuinely the way I feel. Like I said, it's not easy by any means, but I really do believe in this team. I think they'll be able to figure it out in round one. So, regardless of who you are, you're going to have to see the Lakers. And that's just genuinely how I feel about it. I'm not saying that like I said, I'm not saying the series are going to be easy, but I think we will be in the conference finals. But when all is said and done, barring any health issues, because obviously we know that there's been health issues with these guys. So barring any more health issues, I think we're in the conference finals. So regardless of who you are, whether it be the Nuggets, whether it be the Clippers, um, yeah, you could have avoided that first round exit. But if you want to win a championship, you're gonna have to see us regardless, and that's generally how I feel about it. So it is what it is at this point. I mean, maybe you got yourself a little bit of a deeper playoff run. Maybe you were able to, garner a little bit more, momentum not getting, that first round exit and maybe getting a easier first round. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to see him. And I think it might be worse if, like I said, barring any health issues, if you get a healthy Lakers in the conference finals, having been able to get more chemistry, I think you're worse off. So honestly, if I'm the Clippers, if I'm the Nuggets, I would have rather seen the Lakers right now than any other time, because like I said, you go down, and this is like I said, we're gonna need to kind of get that chemistry going right away, and I think we could figure out in that series. I think that'd be a lot easier to do against a team like the Suns than, like you said, against the Jazz or even the Nuggets or even the Clippers, due to the fact that the defensive side of the ball isn't really there. But now that you're allowing them to get that chemistry, it's just it makes it that much worse for you.
And that's what Jared Dudley went on and said. He said if you want your best chance of beating Lakers is now, so it's probably better to see them earlier than later. But it's funny because these teams ultimately, it almost seems like they're trying to avoid facing them in the first round, hoping that another team takes them out.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm more comfortable with playing in a 7-game series rather than play in the regular season where we were playing like one game against one team, then going to go play a different team the next day, and ultimately having our playoff hopes ride on that. Because in a 7-game series, we're studying the opposition and only the opposition for until that series is over. So I think that's the best way to strategize and get the offense going. Defensively, we'll be fine. Offensively, that's the best way to strategize and get chemistry because we're focusing on one team and one team only. So let's say right now we're focusing on the Warriors. Should we beat the Warriors, we're focusing on the Suns for ultimately we're projecting a 7-game series. It most likely won't go 7 games, but we're going to be studying to play them the entire way through. So then when and if we beat them, we then advance and play the winner of the Nuggets Blazers. So then we'd be studying them. But I'm not too worried about it. But I just think it's hilarious that these teams are trying to dodge a bullet in the end, especially the Clippers, because when Kawhi went to the Clippers, it was all about they're the team of LA, they're the team to beat. Yet they're trying to avoid the Lakers, even the banged up Lakers at that. So that's kind of what made me laugh a little bit. Whereas the Nuggets, I get what they were trying to do just because they're already hindered as it is without a Jamal Murray. But it's just funny that you're trying to avoid the Lakers at all costs when in fact this is probably your best chance of defeating them.
100%, and that's what I say. Like, I'd much rather. I'm a lot more comfortable going down, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm a lot more comfortable going down a game or even 2 games against a Phoenix Suns team, which is a very likely possibility in the very beginning of the series. Because, like I said, this is the best chance you're going to have against us right now. So I'd much rather be be going down 1 or 2 games against the Phoenix Suns than I would a Clippers or even a Nuggets or even a Jazz. And obviously the Jazz weren't part of those teams that I feel like were avoiding us, but it is what it is. Like I said, regardless, you're going to have to see the Lakers, in my opinion, at least. Like I said, I mean, we could go out round 1. I could be wrong. I don't see it happening. I think barring any more health issues, we are the best team, at least in the Western Conference Finals. or in the Western Conference, I should say. So I think these teams are gonna have to choose regardless, and they might end up regretting it and wishing that they just saw us round one instead.
And what do you think about these media outlets saying that this is probably LeBron's hardest path to the finals?
Um, kind of. I don't know. I kind of agree and disagree. I saw Stephen A. Smith talking about how he felt. I just don't like the. I don't like the. I don't like the wishy-washy stuff. I feel like if you say something, you should stand on it. I feel like Stephen A. Smith last year was kind of making it seem like the Lakers had probably the most benefit from the season kind of being cut short last year. He was making it seem like the Lakers benefit more than any other team, which I completely didn't understand. Every team got the same time off. Every team had to deal with the same things. So to say that the Lakers kind of benefited from the stop and play last year before the bubble was kind of weird to me. And then he kind of changed his take on it, saying that, oh, he feels like last year was LeBron's hardest. I mean, I don't know. Maybe both those things can be true, but I think to say that the Lakers benefit from it most, but then to come back and say it was LeBron's hardest path, just didn't make sense to me. So I feel like if you say something, you should stand on it. But with that being said, it's definitely between this season and last. Last season, for obvious reasons, I feel like as much as people want to call it a Mickey Mouse ring or whatever the fuck you want to call it, players, there was dudes saying that they literally were dealing with mental health issues in the bubble, not being able to see their families. Like players, like Paul George said that I mean, say what you want, say it's an excuse or not. He said he was dealing with, mental health issues in the bubble. That's why he said he wasn't playing well. So, I mean, just that alone, I feel like makes it the hardest path because
Yeah.
every dealing with being away from their families, being isolated in this bubble, not really being able to go outside and do anything, having to that makes it tough alone. Um, but with that being said, I mean, this season is definitely up there with the toughest. If it's not the toughest, it's probably second to last season. Or then that's just due in fact to the fact like it's probably the year that he's probably been his least healthy. He
Yeah.
has his team that's barely been able to build chemistry over the season because he hasn't had his teammates, and his best teammates completely healthy. So um, it's a mix. It's a mix for me. I can't really determine whether I think it's last season or this season. If I had to go off a limb, I'd say it's probably last season was tougher than this season, uh, just with everything dealing with in the bubble and stuff like that. But otherwise, it's definitely up there. It's definitely probably top two.
Yeah. So for me, I just feel like the media is hyping up each and every opponent that LeBron faces, um, just so that they at the end of the day they can declare him the GOAT. And ultimately, I think LeBron's doing the same thing. He's hyping up each and every opponent to make it seem like they're the hardest opponent that he possibly could have faced at that moment, and just so that when he defeats them, he can say, "Hey, I'm the GOAT." Just look at what he did when he with the Warriors team when he played in the finals. He declared them the greatest team of all time, and when he defeated them, he finally came to the conclusion that he was the GOAT in his eyes. So, but with that being said, I do think that this is probably the hardest path to the finals for him because one, he's playing in the West, which is a lot harder than the Eastern Conference, which he played for most of his career, and two, he's not a top seed at all. If he wins, the highest seed he could possibly be is the seventh seed. So now, one, you don't have home court advantage in any round, and two, you're gonna have to go through either you like the top teams, which is Utah, the Clippers, the Nuggets, or the Suns. So you're gonna have to face one of them in the first round, and then you got to go ahead and then play some other folks. Like, should you make it to the finals, like most likely the team that's waiting for you on the other side is the Nets with three superstars who are almost impossible to guard. So I think this would be his hardest path to the finals and probably his hardest path to a championship. Um, but even then, I think it's not as bad as people make it seem just because uh, the only thing that's kind of hindering the Lakers right now is health. Outside of that, if it wasn't due to health, the Lakers would be a top seed in the West, if not one of the best teams or have the best record in the NBA in itself. So the only reason why the Lakers are in this position is due to health. So, like you said, the obstacle of him not being his healthiest at the moment also plays a factor on why this is probably the hardest path to the finals and to a championship.
Yeah, definitely, and that's really, and that's why it's so tough, really, for me to pick between last season and this season. It's between those two, because I mean, yeah, you could say the 7-3-9 Warriors. Yeah, that's a hard champ. That's a hard team to beat in the finals. You know what I mean? But at the
Yeah,
same time, the path there wasn't the hardest. You know what I mean? We're talking
exactly.
about the path to the finals. The path wasn't the hardest. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was a tough finals, but it wasn't the hardest path. But as an entirety, like you said, like you just broke down, I completely agree. It's probably between this year and last, and I mean, you can almost argue day by day which one you think was harder,
Well,
because they're
yeah,
both.
last year was for everything off the court. This year is for
Yeah,
everything on the court.
exactly.
It almost seems like people want to make fun of the Mickey Mouse ring, however you want to call it. Lakers were the top seed and top team in the NBA last year and didn't even have home court advantage. Like that just goes to show like there's that. Then you got the isolation, which can mess up with the mental aspect of the game. Uh, there's a
A
lot. There's
level
a
playing field with the no
Yeah,
home court,
level playing
just
field.
like you
So
said.
you got no home court advantage, no fans, no nothing. So it is what it is. People can make fun of it all at the end of the day, but it counts as a championship, and uh, LeBron has another one in his pocket. Let's just go to the series that are already like definitive. We already know who they're playing, and then we'll go and talk about the teams that or the series that are still up in the air. So Clippers Mavs. The Mavs won the season series this year 2-1. Uh, and although they won the series 2-1, I do think the Clippers come out on top. But I just find it hilarious if the Lakers somehow lose to the Warriors and then win, so that now they play the Jazz. They would essentially play the Clippers in the second round should they advance. So all that avoiding was almost for nothing. But Clippers Mavs, I have the Clippers winning in six. They beat the Mavs last year in six, and I think they're going to win in six again. The X factor is Porzingis. Porzingis balled out last year, and ultimately they probably would have won the series last year should he not have went down with an injury. So I think he's the X factor. Should he perform, I see the Mavs beating the Clippers just because the Clippers are, in my opinion, a worse team than they were last year. Um, so I think the Mavs have a possibility of upsetting the Clippers, but I'm just gonna give the Clippers uh, the advantage at this moment just because they have that superstar power, and I don't know how much I can depend on Porzingis.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny that you say that because I literally, I feel the exact same way about that series. Because there's so many unknowns with that series, and it's mostly because, like I said, I mean, you say the X factor is Kristaps Porzingis. I completely agree. I mean, he's kind of always dealt with the health issues. Even this year, he was kind of in and out. But if he's able to play at a high level, like we seen him in last year in the series against the Clippers, I definitely can see them winning. But also just the unknowns of a Paul George. I mean, just like previous years, like last year, he was playing an amazing season, and then he comes into the playoffs and it's like a completely different player. So obviously, like I mentioned previously, he kind of put that and blamed it a little bit on the bubble and the situation that was going on with that. So that's fine. Uh, but now we got to see you come out and play lights out like you have been this season.
Yeah,
Because if you come back in this playoffs again and shit the bed, you don't have that same excuse. You know what I mean? You can't say that it was the bubble's fault again. You can't. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that mental health and stuff. Obviously, mental health can always be an issue regardless. But you don't have that same excuse of oh, the bubble was stressful and this and that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So you have to continue to play lights out. Otherwise, there's really no excuse for it anymore. So
for sure.
those are like for me like I feel like there's really two X factors in this series, and like that's the health and the abilities and the capabilities of Kristaps Porzingis, and the capabilities of a Paul George, what we know he's capable of, and what we've seen him kind of fail to do in the playoffs the previous year. So I think there's two X factors in the series. But if I had to say ultimately who I think is going to end up pulling it out, who I'm more comfortable saying in this moment, uh, even with those unknowns, who I think will pull it out, it definitely, like I said, it'd be the Clippers.
Yeah,
I
as
completely agree.
like Luca is almost on. He's not on the stratosphere of Steph, but he's in terms of he can ultimately shift the series or shift the game and take over. He can most definitely do so, and he did so last year, and that's ultimately why they pushed him to 6 games in the bubble. And it was just he didn't have the supporting help to pull off an upset in the series. So if I hope Porzingis is fully healthy so we can see what that series could have looked like last year. But like you said, I feel more comfortable with saying the Clippers at this given moment. But with that being said, we can move on to the Nuggets Blazers. The Nuggets won the season series 2-1 with the one loss being just the other day. In hopes to not play the Lakers. So how do you see this series panning out?
Um, it's tough. I think that this game can go seven for sure. I think it'll be a closer series than maybe people might anticipate it to be. I don't think the Trailblazers are scrubs. I mean, we know what Dame's capable of. Like it's crazy. Yeah, CJ McCollum. We know what CJ McCollum's capable of. Like they have two superstars over there who are capable of, absolutely taking over games. You know what I mean? So either of them could score 50 on any given night or you know what I mean. So there's a possibility. I definitely think that the series will go 7 games. But ultimately, um, even without Jamal Murray, I think the Nuggets still pull it out in either 6 or 7. And
Yeah,
that's due to the fact that Joker is playing MVP level basketball. We have Aaron Gordon saying this is the easiest buckets that he's ever gotten in his life. We have
well, he's not
Mike.
lying.
Yeah, exactly. So we got Michael Porter Jr., who's playing really well, and if it wasn't for a guy like Julius Randle, who's playing lights out, could be a candidate as well for like most improved player because he's playing really well as well.
For
So
sure.
even without the absence of a Jamal Murray, there's still enough firepower there for the Nuggets. And like I said, with Jokic playing some of his best basketball ever, and being capable of scoring 30 a night and still you know almost practically, averaging a triple double. I believe he's at like 20, like 5, 10, and 8. So he's almost averaging a triple double. So I mean, they have just a bit too much firepower for the Trailblazers to overtake them. I think
Yeah.
that they'll be outlast the Trailblazers, but I do think it'll be a very close series. So I got the Nuggets in either 6 or 7.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I think this series goes 7. And what came down to it is the Nuggets don't have Jamal Murray. So my question is, who's guarding Dame? And I really have no idea who's guarding Dame. The Nuggets are a lot, like in terms of depth, they're a deeper team. Like you mentioned, you mentioned a few folks, and the person that I'm eyeing as an X factor is Michael Porter Jr. Can he
Yep.
continue uh, that ability to score any given night, or will he go back to being inconsistent? Should he be consistent? I see the Nuggets coming out on top. Should he be inconsistent? I think the Blazers pull this off. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna go with the Blazers. I think Dame is just he's an animal. He's got ice in his veins. He's got no remorse for anybody. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's gonna be a tight series. I think each game. I don't think there will be a blowout any given night. But I think Melo's gonna show up because this may or may not be his last season. Um, and he's only made it out of the first round once in his career, and that was when he lost to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals with the Nuggets. And I think CJ McCollum, we've seen what he's capable of in the bubble last year. So I think they already came over that hump of getting that first round exit. They got a taste of advancing, and I think they want to continue to do so. Last year wasn't their time because they played the Lakers first round. So I think they'll squeeze out a win and advance in 7, but I wouldn't be opposed to the Nuggets advancing because, like you said, Jokic is playing MVP level basketball. Porter Jr. is playing MIP level basketball,
Yeah.
and they still have stars, even though the fact that they're
Yeah.
missing Jamal Murray.
No, and I mean to speak a little bit on the fact that you said Michael Porter Jr. is kind of X factor in the level of consistency. I think depending on the level of consistency we get from him is really the difference between a 6 or 7 game series. If I'm being honest,
Yeah,
because if he can, like I said, like you said, I mean, if we can see that same level of scoring capabilities that we seen from him last year in the bubble, I mean, almost demanding like from Jamal Murray, who's just a certified bucket getter. I mean, we saw what he was doing against the Lakers, and I mean, really everybody else last year. But I mean, it seemed like everything he's putting up was going in, and for Michael Porter Jr. to still have the confidence and be like, "Yo, I know you're fucking balling right now, but you can give me the ball too." And then to go out there and then actually, score buckets, to have that level of confidence and capability is huge. So I
yeah.
think if he's able to do that, like I said, that's the difference between a 6 or 7 game series. But you really just can't count the Trailblazers out because they do have a squad. But like you said, Dame is just a fucking killer. Like
Yeah,
you can't count. You cannot count the Trailblazers out. You cannot count the Trailblazers.
and that's the thing is so like Jamal Murray, he was a big piece to their puzzle. And the fact that he went out and Jokic just stepped up his game and everyone else stepped up their game, that was the regular season. Now it's playoff time. Now you got to play people in 7 game series, so it's a different ball game. And that's exactly why I picked the Blazers to win in 7. I think the Nuggets have the capabilities of pushing it to 7 games and possibly winning the series, but I think uh, maybe the inexperience of that team, just because like Jamal Murray was a main reason why they made it to the Western Conference Finals last year, and the fact that they don't have him, and ultimately you could say replacing him with Aaron Gordon because Aaron Gordon wasn't there last year. I don't think it's enough to push the piece. So if anything, if they do advance, I don't see them advancing past the second round, but I'm gonna pick the Blazers in this one. Um,
Nah, it'll be close though. But
yeah, for sure, for sure.
yeah,
That's probably gonna be the best series to the first round. Um,
I agree.
so I wouldn't be opposed to that. But yeah, I was gonna say if the Lakers play the Suns, then that'd probably be the other best series. But we don't know about that yet. But to go, we have to talk about the definitive matchup. So we're gonna shift over to the East. The Knicks play the Hawks. The Knicks made the playoffs. We finally got some Knicks basketball in the playoffs. First time since 2013. Um, and they won the series 3-0 against the Hawks. So for me, although they have Ice Tray on the other side, and they got a few vets like Capella, Gallinari, and folks like that, I'm picking the Knicks to win. And I don't expect it to go far. I think the Knicks win in 5. The Knicks have been playing very well. Julius Randle has been playing the best basketball of his career. They're playing out of their mind, and I don't want people to keep just talking about the like Randall, like the rest of the squad hasn't been stepping up. Like he's the reason why they're stepping it up because he's the leader. Everyone's rallying behind him, but everyone else hasn't been playing like scrubs either. And Tibbs has got that team playing at like top tier basketball, and if they were playing anyone else besides the Hawks in the first round, I don't know if they advance. But the fact that they're playing the Hawks, I have them advancing, and I have them advancing in 5, just because of the consistency of basketball that they've been playing all season long.
Yeah, I got the Knicks as well. I'm almost inclined to say I got the Knicks in 4. But I think that the Hawks are more than capable of squeezing out at least one game. I mean, you mentioned the plethora of players that they have. They have a lot of talent, especially a lot of vets, guys that have been there before, seen the playoffs. So they have plenty of talent and experience. But with that being said, I just feel like the Knicks are a dark horse, in my opinion, especially in the Eastern Conference. And the big reason for that is they're probably playing better team basketball than almost any team in the NBA. And they're probably one of the more tightly knit teams in the NBA than any other team in the NBA. Because, I mean, these guys what makes them scary is they're comfortable grinding out buckets. Like, they will grind if they have to. Yeah, I mean, and it seems like whether the buckets are coming easier or not, they don't care. They're gonna go out and get their buckets,
Yeah.
and that's what's kind of scary about the Knicks is a lot of their not that I mean we've seen Julius Randle. I mean his game has expanded so vastly, and that's why he's probably the most improved player. I mean his mid range game is deadly.
You saying three
His
pointers?
even his 3-point shooting is there. So like it's crazy. Like I mean those are probably the easiest buckets the Knicks are getting too. But otherwise
Yeah.
like their buckets aren't coming easy, and that's what makes them scary is that they're willing to grind that out. And I mean we've heard about the work that they've put in, and every time we see them step on the court, we see it. So that's what I feel makes the Knicks so scary is that they're willing to grind harder than anybody else, even the teams that have more talent than they do. So I think I'm gonna go Knicks in 4. Um, like I said, I was inclined to say 4, but I think I'm gonna go 4 just because I do think that, I mean, they really took care of the Hawks this season. I mean, they only lost one game against the Hawks this season. They took care of them this
No,
season.
they swept them.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I thought the Hawks had taken one game, but yeah. So even worse. I mean, they got swept this season by the Knicks. So
Yeah.
I think
I
the
mean,
Knicks are more capable of doing it in the playoffs. I just think the fact that it is the playoffs is what made me more inclined to say 5 games.
and that's why I said 5 because
Yeah,
it's the playoffs, it's a series, and they have talent on the other side. So I feel like they have the ability to steal one game, but I don't see it going any more than 5 games. But I
I
think the
completely
Knicks
agree.
take it regardless.
I agree. 5
And that,
it'll go. Yeah.
the next series is Bucks Heat. So we already know what happened last year with these two teams. The Heat upset the Bucks on their way to the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but this season, the Bucks won the season series 2-1. Uh, I guess I'll start it off. The Bucks have been one of the best teams in the regular season for the past couple years. But come playoff time, it's almost like they're a whole different team. And I'm almost inclined to saying that they finally, change things with Drew Holiday being there and what have you. But and the fact that the Heat don't have Oladipo because Oladipo is going to miss the rest of the season, I'm going to pick the Heat here to win this series in 6. The X factor being Trevor Ariza.
Okay.
Why? Because he's going to be the one I think primarily guarding Giannis, and I think he can. And especially in but only reason why I say I think he can in the season series because you're focusing on that individual. Like the task at hand, and from his career, he's one of those people that knows like their task at hand. We've seen it
Oh, definitely. He knows the man.
when he was on the Lakers. Especially defense is his primary focus. And when you don't have Trevor Ariza, I don't know. You have Iguodala on him. They have Iguodala. He hasn't been the Warriors Iguodala by any measure of but he's still a lengthy defensive player. So you put him on a Giannis, you got to throw bodies at him, and I think the Heat have that to advance. And offensively, they got ballers. They got Jimmy. They got Bam. They got Hero. They got Duncan Robinson. I think they can squeeze out a series against the Bucks. So I have the Heat winning in 6.
So I got the Bucks winning in 5 or 6. More than likely 6. Especially, I mean, we saw what Jimmy Butler was capable of doing. How he was capable of extending the series even against the Lakers, which could have easily gone 5 games. So he single handedly really was able to do that. So I would never be able to say that Jimmy Butler and the Heat are going to get swept. However, I think if there was going to be a team to do it, I think it would be these Bucks. Because and it's kind of like to what you said. We've just not seen the level of consistency from the Bucks because they're always the best team throughout the regular season, and then we see them in the playoffs, and it's a completely different story. However, I just I get a feeling that this season might be different. Um, and that's really just based off of a feeling. I mean, Giannis is just getting buckets right now. He's even tried to expand his game a little bit and get himself a little bit more range. A big part of the reason last year that they weren't able to do anything was Chris Middleton disappearing. He's playing really well right now, so obviously, if he's capable of not disappearing again, then we should be good. The fact that they have Drew Holiday, which was an addition from the previous year, so I think that was a huge addition for them. I think obviously I don't think compared to Eric Bledsoe and Drew Holiday, I think Drew Holiday is clearly the better player. You know what
For
I mean?
sure.
So
They upgraded.
that's what I'm saying. So they definitely upgraded there. It's just the level of consistency for them because I
It,
think
it, it's, it's funny
the Bucks
that you're saying
are
this
not.
because it's funny that you're saying this though because a lot of the stuff you're saying is a lot of the stuff that we've been hearing in years
It's
past
true.
on
It's
why the
true.
Bucks are going to advance, and they never do.
100%. Hey, you're not wrong, and that's what's so scary about picking them. I feel like it's just like I said. I feel like this year will be different. I don't know why. I'm just kind of giving the Bucks the benefit of the doubt. I don't. I really shouldn't. And like
I
you said,
mean,
they really haven't. They haven't proved me right ever.
I
And
mean,
you're 100% right.
should they advance? They have to play the winner of the Nets Celtics. So
Yeah.
I don't see them advancing past the second round.
Well, I
But
don't see
but
either that advancing past the second round because I don't think either of the teams are beating the Brooklyn Nets. Because if we're
but
being honest,
I
are
think
beating.
that the team's best fit to beating the Nets in the East are the Sixers and the Bucks. So with me predicting that the Heat beat the Bucks, the only team that can beat the Nets in the East is the 76ers. So they would have to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals to even make that happen. Which
Yeah.
I think they're capable of doing. But the only reason why I say that is because defensively you have to guard the Nets. With the
No, it's
Bucks,
true.
they have Holiday, which they could throw on Kyrie or Harden, and they have Giannis, who they could throw on KD. And then with the Sixers, they have Ben Simmons, who can you can throw on KD, and you have other folks that can help defensively. But I think if I wouldn't be opposed to the Bucks beating the Heat just because the Heat are down a superstar or down a star. I can say because I don't think Oladipo is a superstar. I think he's a star. Um, but with them being down, I think the only thing that the Heat can really rely on is defense, and that's kind of what they pride themselves on. So I think that's the only way they advance. But the Bucks, I'm hoping they prove me wrong, but I'm picking the Heat to advance. And
Yeah.
then I guess I'll make it easy for next round or for the next matchup. It's Nets Celtics. Nets swept them 3-0 in the regular season. Celtics surprised me in even winning the play-in against the Wizards. I was hoping the Wizards pulled it off because I was hoping for a Nets Wizards playoff matchup just because I felt like the Wizards had a better chance against the Nets. But Nets in four.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I completely agree. For being honest, I mean, the Celtics haven't looked good at all. I mean, they
No.
really haven't fit. Like they look like a. It's weird. It's like they just stay stagnant. They don't get any better. Every single year, I feel like they haven't gotten better. They just stay stagnant. And I mean,
Only bright spot
especially
is Tatum.
100%, and especially now with the uncertainties of Jalen Brown's health. How the hell are they supposed to squeeze out even a game against
Oh
the
no,
Bucks?
he's out. He's out for the season. He's done.
Oh,
He's done for.
that's even worse. So now how are they supposed to squeeze out a game against the Brooklyn Nets? I
Yeah.
think even with Jalen Brown, that's a tough task. Um, they just haven't looked good. You know what I
I,
mean?
I I mean, if it wasn't for Tatum balling out and dropping, I think he dropped 50. Yeah.
Yep.
If it wasn't for him dropping 50 yesterday against the Wizards, they don't advance. And that's even with the Westbrook, with the Beal playing on one leg and Westbrook not having the greatest shooting night. Like, if Tatum didn't drop 50, although they won by 18, if he didn't drop 15 or 50, I don't see them beating the Wizards. And like I said, I thought the Wizards had a better chance against the Nets just because in all their matchups against the Nets this year they were tight.
Yeah.
Whereas the
Hey,
Celtics, you literally have Kemba's been playing better, you can say, but the only really bright spot is Tatum, and he's the only chance of even possibly beating the Nets. I think Kyrie and Kemba they kind of squash, and they're gonna both drop 30 on each other's head. And then you got Tatum versus Kevin Durant, but then who's guarding Harden? That's
yeah. No,
where Brown would come in, but he's not there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I completely agree because I think that Wizards team, uh, I thought that Wizards team was going to beat the Celtics. I thought ultimately the Celtics would end up for possibly an 8 seed, if that,
Yeah.
because I mean those Pacers look fucking deadly. But, like I said, I thought that the Wizards would come out and beat the Celtics. They kind of didn't show up, so that's on the Wizards. I mean, Bradley Beal, we obviously know he's not the healthiest right now. He's dealing with a hammy. He still went out there and scored 22, but we obviously know what he's capable of when he's healthy. And he wasn't, even after scoring 22, he didn't have the best shooting night.
Yeah.
Westbrook almost seemed like he disappeared. And that's with him going 20, 14, and 5, which isn't a bad stat line. But like I said, it wasn't the same Westbrook. It wasn't.
That killer.
Yeah, it was not those same Wizards, and you can just see that from watching the game.
Yeah.
So ultimately, like I said, if I thought they were gonna lose to these Wizards, I just don't see them even winning a game against these Brooklyn Nets. It's just not gonna happen.
All right, so the 76ers, they play either the Wizards or the Pacers now that, that matchup is already set in stone. The Sixers won the series against the Wizards 3-0, and they won the series against the Pacers 2-1. I'm predicting 76ers in 5 regardless, just because, I mean, yeah, 76ers in 5, just because if they play the Wizards, Beal's health is, we already know about that. He's on one leg. And Westbrook's inconsistency come playoff time, I think if anything they'll still win game. The Pacers are, if Karis LeVert plays, which he didn't play in the playing game, and they fucking blew the Hornets out of the water without him. Domantas Sabonis is probably the most underrated, star in the game, and him with Miles Turner. I think they could, especially with Brogdon coming back, I think they could squeeze out a game as well. But I think the 76ers defensively is on a different stratosphere. With the Pacers, I don't think they could keep up. Embiid is playing MVP basketball. In my opinion, he would have won MVP without debate. Should he not have missed some time? That's just the way he was balling. And Ben Simmons, Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion. I think 76ers win it in 5 regardless.
Um, so I think the 76ers win the series regardless. However, if it's the Wizards, I think it's in 5. If it's the Pacers, I think it's in 6. I think the Pacers are a lot more than capable of squeezing out at least 2 games. I don't think they'll do much more after that. But like you said, they blew these dudes out yesterday without Karis LeVert, which is one of their second best player on the entire team.
Yeah.
So I think with Domantas Sabonis, Karis LeVert, Malcolm Brogdon, Miles Turner, I mean they have the talent to at least squeeze out 2 games. I know defensively the Sixers are just too much. TJ Warren, who, maybe he's capable of pulling out a few of those bubble games out of his pocket again. Who knows? So I think they're more than capable of squeezing out 2 games. I think it can happen. It won't go past 6 games if it even gets past 5 with either team. But regardless of who it is, I do got the Sixers winning as well, in either 5 or 6.
All right, and then the Suns, they play either the Lakers or the Warriors. So we'll find out tonight after that matchup. They won the season series against both teams 2-1. My prediction for the play-in is that the Lakers win. So I'm picking Lakers in 7. I do think it goes 7 games just due to the health of the Lakers. It's in question, but you also got ballers on the other side for the Suns. Monty Williams, Coach of the Year. He's had these Suns playing on a different level since the bubble last year, and then you added Chris Paul, and they switched like the whole organization upside down. So now they're balling out. They got Ayton, Booker, Crowder, CP3. I think they have enough to push it 7 games, but I don't think they have enough experience to push the Lakers out of the playoffs and ultimately advance.
Yeah. So I'll say this: I do want to just throw out there your prediction. I was correct. I actually, if you remember correctly, I did choose Monty Williams as Coach of the Year, but I also did say that my Coach of the Year prediction could possibly win Coach of the Year due to the fact that he's on the court. and that's Chris Paul. Uh, you know what I mean? Like his on-court coaching ability, off-court coaching ability. I mean, it's there. I mean, he's one of the smartest players to ever play the game. One of the best point guards I've ever seen. He was
Yeah.
my pick for MVP. I said it on Balls Deep. You know what I mean? We had a poll about it, I'm pretty sure. Like, he's my pick for MVP. And it's strictly based off narrative. Because if you look at the numbers, they're not there. But you cannot ignore what he has been able to do to also help turn on that Suns team, as well as Monty Williams. Because I don't want to say it as if Monty Williams doesn't deserve any credit. Because I
For
said it.
sure.
I even said it when I said he should be coach of the year. I thought his message after having won eight straight games in the bubble, his message to them after having won eight straight games but losing the playing game to them, was beautiful. I mean, he told them, like, run with this, take this
Yeah.
momentum, run with this, and clearly these guys are buying into him. He seems
For
like a
sure.
great. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He seems like he has these guys behind him, and that's like the biggest thing is people buying into you. And clearly they did that because obviously with the addition of Chris Paul, they got better. But there's no denying that Monty Williams kind of really had these guys in the right direction, regardless. But with that being said, I think this game go. I think this game goes six, and a lot of that does have to do with the health. Um, but ultimately, I don't really see anybody on this team that is going to be capable of really guarding, an AD.
I think their best bet is Crowder,
Yeah,
but I don't think he's enough.
I don't think he's going to be able to. I mean, just his size, his ability to also play, in the mid range and play the deep ball as well. It's AD is really a mismatch anywhere, and it's because of his size and his ability to play the deep ball as well, and that's what's so tough
Yeah.
about guarding AD. But at the same time, like you said, an experience. The most experienced person on this team is Chris Paul, and I mean, aside from his run with the Rockets, how much experience does he really have? I mean, because he really didn't get much further than what I believe the second round in his entire career, or the first round in his entire career, other than when he was with the Houston Rockets.
No,
Um,
second.
okay, second, yeah. So I mean, yeah, he has that experience. He's one of the best point guards ever. He's turned his team around, but at the end of the day, um, even his lack of real playoff experience against those deeper playoff teams like the Lakers who just came off a championship, it's just not enough. And so like I said, just in terms of player experience and just not really having the guys on the defensive side of the ball, like you said, the Suns were the best matchup for us to get in this first round, and that's because they lack defensively, and they're kind of the perfect matchup for us because while they can score the ball with the best of them, I mean, we can lock up practically
Oh
anybody.
shit! With the Rockets, they made it Western Conference Finals, and then
Yeah.
that was against the Warriors. But besides that, yeah, he only made it to the semifinals. Um, but I just want to put this out in the air, as just because I got to be objective here. Should the Warriors beat the Lakers tonight, I I say the Suns win the series in six. So I have the Lakers winning in seven, and if not, the Suns. If not for them playing the Lakers, I have the Suns winning in six. Only reason why is because I think Stephen Curry and Draymond, they're playing lights out in their experience. I'll give them 2 games, for the hell of it. But I just don't think as a team, as a unit, they're good enough to beat the Suns in a 7 game series. So if the Suns don't play the Lakers, I think they advance. But should they play the Lakers, unfortunately, their time ends here.
Yeah, I mean, I think if that were to happen as well, I would go Suns as well, but I got the Suns in seven. I think with the experience and how we've seen Steph playing, I think he's more than capable of pushing that game to a 7 game series. Like I said, he's playing the best basketball he's ever played in
Yeah.
his career, and I mean, he's been really good the past few years. So that's kind of scary to say. So I do think that he's more than capable of pushing that to a 7 game series. I mean, we know Draymond as well. He was always the glue to that team. So in a playoff series against the Suns in the first round, is he turning it up? He definitely is. We know he's more than capable of getting in people's heads. We know he's more than capable of bringing that tenacity and just like like I said, a player like Alex Caruso, Draymond's kind of on another level because he's also a talker. He's gonna get in your head. You know what I mean? He's just a pest. So he's definitely turning up. So I could definitely see them pushing to 7 games. Ultimately, I do think that the Suns just have the better team.
All right, and the last series is the Jazz versus to be determined. And why is because we don't even know who's playing in the matchup that possibly plays them yet. We won't find out until after tonight. So let me just go through the season series against all 4 possibilities. They swept both the Grizzlies and the Spurs 3-0. They beat the Lakers 2-1, and they lost the series to the Warriors 1-2. So I think the best bet against them is putting them up against the Warriors. So I'm hoping the Lakers win, so that and the Warriors win, those are my predictions. Is that just because I think the Warriors are going to test their limits, the best outside of obviously the Lakers. But I'm going to pick the Jazz in 6. Should they play the Warriors? Should they play the Grizzlies or the Spurs? I have them winning in 4. And then if they play the Lakers, I have them losing in 6.
So I'll say this. I think that if we get the Jazz, I got us beating Jazz in 6 as well. If they play the Warriors, I got them winning in 5. And if they play the Grizzlies or Spurs, I got them winning in 4. So very similar, but not the same. But yeah, I mean, I don't see any way the Grizzlies or Spurs are getting a single game on the Jazz. Again, when we talk about the Warriors, it really comes down to the experience that Steph and Draymond have and the fact that, like we said, I mean, Steph is playing lights out. Arguably MVP basketball. Like you said, he's your MVP. LeBron's came out and said he's his MVP. A lot of people have come out and said he's MVP.
John Morant.
I don't completely agree with it. I'm still on the Joker train. I think I hate how it's kind of how everybody's going about the MVP conversation right now. Because I do think Jokic deserves it, and I feel like he's being overlooked. That's just me.
I mean, we had this conversation the other day.
Yes, exactly. So there's arguments to be made on both sides for MVP. There's no doubt. I wouldn't be mad with either of those guys winning it. So I'm not saying Steph doesn't deserve it. I just don't think he's my MVP.
So I want to clarify what I said before. So I'm not opposed to him winning MVP. I just personally think I think Steph deserves it more. I mean, the Warriors were the worst team in basketball last year, and they shouldn't have made the playoffs this year. He is the way that they're currently constructed. He literally willed them to the playoffs, and yes, they're either going to be the 7th or 8th seed. Should they make the playoffs? But that they shouldn't even be in contention. So the fact that he's putting up, I think it's 32-5-5 this season. He's playing out of his mind. He either broke the record or came close to breaking the record for most 3-pointers in a month.
I think he almost broke it, and then Steve Kerr took him out the game.
Yeah, so I think he's playing on like I said before, on a whole another planet. And that's the only reason why I pick him to win MVP. And if not, I think CP3 just because of narrative reasons, like you mentioned before, his plus minus or his effect on winning, it's very noticeable. And you even said he can honestly be coach of the year, and that's not taking anything from Munzie, but 100%. He's literally the on-court coach. So I'm not opposed to it for Jokic to win. I just feel like other people are more deserving. But I think Jokic is the 3rd person ever to finish top 5 in points, assists, and rebounding.
Yeah, it's like he's nearly averaging a triple double. I'm pretty sure, if I'm correct, I'm not certain on the points, but I'm pretty sure it's about 25, 10, and 8, and I think it's like 8.9. So he's very close to averaging a triple double.
He's 26.4 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, and 8.3 assist points per game. So he played all 72 games, and he's the 3rd player in NBA history to finish the season ranked in the top 5 in total points, rebounds, and assists. So he's 3rd in points, 5th in rebounds, and 3rd in assists.
100%, and that's why I say I think he's the MVP. Strictly narrative, I'm giving CP my vote if I had a vote, Because strictly narrative, I think it's CP3. But if I'm if I'm going based off the best player this league year, I just thought it was Jokic. I mean, the numbers you just gave them, they speak for themselves. But not to say that nobody else doesn't deserve it. I think a lot of those guys are deserving. And I feel like maybe that's another reason why Jokic isn't getting the nod as much from people, is that aside from a lot of previous years, this might be the hardest year to really determine who you think is the MVP. And I think it might be one of the races we've seen.
And the only reason why I wanted to clarify is because it almost seemed like I was saying he was the scrub, and I don't think he's the scrub at all. In my opinion, I mentioned to you, he's almost like Luka. Obviously, he's not as flashy as Luka, but they're both like they both move in slow motion, but they they seem to get the job done, and they they know the fundamentals, and that's ultimately what allows them to strive and be as great as they are. That's why he's not as flashy of a player that people are hoping. He's not as entertaining, but he does everything right. So I'm not saying he's a scrub. I just was basically going out and saying that I just feel like, in my opinion, I would give the award to Chris Paul over Jokic.
Yeah,
not Chris Paul, Stephen Curry.
No, honestly, and I honestly feel like 100%. Like, that plays a little bit of a part in the fact that he's not getting that nod from a lot of people. It's just that level of excitement that you want to see from an MVP. He just doesn't have it because he's not that type of player. And I feel like if for some reason that plays a part in it. But I really don't think it should. And like I said, I think maybe it's one of the years in which usually there's a guy and you're like, that's the MVP. Usually there's that guy. And it's almost easy to determine that every single year. You're like, no, this guy's MVP. And you always have those people, regardless of how surefire it is, you're always going to have those people like, oh, this guy was robbed. You're never going to have 100% of the people agree. But I think, aside from that, I think this year is like the closest year where you could actually be like, okay, any one of these guys could actually win it for one reason or another. And that's what makes it so tough.
And you made a good point the other day, too, saying, like, the Nuggets are the the third best team in the West, and they're without Jamal Murray. They have been without him since April 12th. So, and the fact that he's got them where they are, although I don't want to give him all the credit because, like you mentioned before, Michael Porter Jr. has been balling out as well, but he's definitely deserving of some credit, if not most of the credit. But I feel like this is a perfect way to end the episode, so I'm going to let you say what you got to say first.
Yeah, no, and I was just saying, I mean, that is also doing part of the fact that Jokic is also just a very good facilitator, too. So, yeah. I mean, it goes hand in hand sometimes, not always.
And the reason why I say this is a perfect way to end, the episode is because I want you guys watching, if you made it this far, thank you. Comment down below. Who is your MVP for the season? Is it Jokic? Is it Curry? Is it Chris Paul? Or is it some other candidate that should be named? And should they be named, it'll be you naming them in the comments. So go ahead and comment. Who's your MVP, NBA MVP for, this season? And we're looking forward to seeing that. And if you haven't already, go check out our guys at the Expansion Pack podcast. They have daily content, gaming podcasts. They not only provide you with gaming content, they provide you with laughs. So if you enjoy us, you'll enjoy them more just because there's more of them. There's 3 of them. There's only 2 of us. So go show them love and continue to show love to us. Make sure to participate in our polls of the week. We had a good one last week on who's going to finish higher on the point guard rankings of all time. Will it be Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook? So if you haven't already, go comment your answer there, whether that be on Facebook, Instagram, or even Twitter. So follow us on all platforms to stay updated and even be able to participate in these polls of the week.
Give me Chris Paul though.
Jovan, do you have anything else to say?
No, they're saying that poll. Give me Chris Paul. I can't win with Westbrook.
Oh no, I agree. Everyone on Instagram seemed to say Russell Westbrook, but
Yeah.
I think Chris Paul is the better point guard. I think
Yes.
statistic.
If you want to win championships, Chris Paul is definitely the player of the two. And I'm not saying obviously neither have won championships.
Yeah,
So I'm not saying
I think
that. But if you want a better chance to win championships, Chris Paul is going to give you that chance. So
I think all time when it's all said and done, they'll both be top 5, but Chris Paul is gonna be top 3.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I want Chris Paul. He's a better point guard. He's a more overall. I mean, it's hard to say overall because Westbrook's probably the best athlete we've seen at the position.
The guy's literally averages a triple double. It's hard
but
to say
Chris Paul's more efficient.
Yes, he's more efficient.
And like there's a streak where he goes like so many assists without a turnover, and Westbrook is a turnover machine.
Yeah.
So
not only that, but his shot selection is so much better. We spoke about his coaching ability on court. I mean, we both mentioned it. I had said that he'd probably be my coach of the year candidate if players were allowed to win it. So like, you know what I mean? Like, that just speaks for itself. But yeah, just go show love to our boys over at Expansion Pack Podcast. Again, comment, like Devin said, your MVP pick. There's a lot of them. We've even heard Julius Randle's, which, hey,
I'm not only from Knicks fans.
Hey, I'm not. I'm Knicks fan. Hey, I mean, if we're talking about most valuable player,
valuable.
Yeah, I mean, it fits the definition. So I'm not completely against it. Although I don't think he's more deserving than a few other guys. But hey, but yeah, like Devin said, comment that. Go show love to our boys at Expansion Pod Podcast. We appreciate the support as always. And I'm pretty sure Devin already said what he had to say. So with that being said,
peace.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.